Guys, move in.
Thank you.
Ready? Here we go. First of all, we're a shul. Reinu Arav Shtita and all Rabbanim. Because it's a special schut to speak to you, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a special place in his heart for people who learn every day. Okay? It's a different life. All of you know that then. What time do you guys get up? At 5:30? 6?
You know what's amazing about this guys? It ranges from 5 to like 10:30.
One of our guys is coming.
But they all learn.
No, I know. I once came to see it on at night, the program. He took me, what's his name? But it's an incredible thing, and I don't need to tell you the effect that it has on your marriages, on your kids, on everything. You'll be blessed for it and continue it.
Amen.
What should we talk about? I'll take a few minutes and once we rush all invite. It's a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Always a good thing.
It's very good, especially when we left our wives and kids for a week.
All right, talk about home bias. So you'll come home with something, at least besides some trinket that you buy at the airport for your wives and garbage. Listen carefully now. This week's parsha is Parshat Tachodesh, right? That means that we're warming up towards Pesach. I want to tell you 3 thoughts, and then I'll tell you a 4th one. You find something very interesting. When Am Yisrael went down to Golus Mitzrayim, so in the beginning of Shemot, what do we say over there? Ish u'beis rebo. They came with their families. Isn't that interesting? I mean, Yaakov Avinu came down to Egypt, but the pasuk says he came with his family. When Klal Yisrael leaves Mitzrayim, we're going to read at the Seder, they left as a family. How do we know they left as a family, by the way? Anybody know? How do we know the family unit? Because the Korban Pesach is not an individual, it's one per household, right? So the unit of Klal Yisrael that came down to Egypt, that left Egypt, is the family. Okay? That's a... It means the family, the unit of Klal Yisrael is not the individual, it's the family unit. But I'll tell you something more incredible than that. You know, there were 10 plagues, 10 makas, right? What was the last one? At 12 o'clock at night, right? So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? They put the blood on the doorpost in order that I should know the difference who's the Egypt house and who's the Jewish house, right? So I don't understand. I'll ask you a question. All the other 9 makot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't need a identification to know who's Jewish, who's not, right? When they had the blood, they had half a cup of Pepsi Coke, Pepsi Diet Pepsi. We drank Coke Zero. Egyptians drank what? Blood. Sardea, the frogs, Kinim. All of a sudden, Makat B'charot, we need to have a sign who's Jewish, who's not. Why? You ever thought about it?
It's a zechut. It's a zechut that we perform.
So why? I agree with you, but why on that plague? Why not on the other ones? Strange, though. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't know the difference. I'll tell you what the answer is. On the 10th plague, on the 10th Makat B'charot, there were 2 things that were happening. One is the plague itself, but there was another event that was happening. That second, at 12 o'clock at night, when all the Bechor, all the firstborns of Egypt died, that was the moment of creation of Klal Yisrael, of Am Yisrael. Agreed? Right, that second. Right, that's what we say, Kadosh Li Kol Bechor, because at that second, HaKadosh said, we're parting ways now, right? So the Makat B'charot wore 2 hats. One hat that it wore was, it's a plague, it's a punishment. It also wore a different hat. It's also the moment of, that's the moment when the Jewish people became a nation. Listen carefully. If you want to join the Jewish nation, you have to have a Jewish house. So God said, listen, The Makat B'chorot I can figure out by myself who's Egyptian, who's Jewish. That I can work out. But there's something else going on at that second. Am Yisrael is becoming a nation, right? You have to have a Jewish house. And what defines Judaism and part of Am Yisrael is your bias, is your house a Jewish house. So if you put the blood of the Pesach, which is Emunah, I believe in Hashem, and you put the Dam, there's another blood that was on the door, which was what? Dam Milah, right? What's Dam Milah? That's Kedusha, that's sanctifying the body. There are two pillars that the Jewish home lives on. Kedusha and Emunah. If you want to be part of the Jewish nation, you have to announce, I want to be part. You have to have a Jewish house. You have to have a Jewish house. You have to have values. And that's why at that critical moment, everyone had to announce, we are Jewish. And how did they announce it? Our house, our bias, our doors. Okay? We're not letting in outside influences. We're going to, that's what really happened at that critical moment. Okay? Slowly. There are two types of chinuch. All of you have kids, Mirz Hashem, children, b'nei banim. You should have nachat from everybody. You want to give over our values to your children, correct? I would take for granted that this is probably the most important thing on your mind. Agreed?
Yeah.
Now there are two types of chinuch. There's riyad, there's planting, and there's binyan, building. Let's say, Zriyah means I plant something, it grows by itself as long as I nurture it, as long as I irrigate it, I fertilize it, I give sunlight, I give air. And then there's binyan, where I build. Now the difference is that when you plant something, you plant it once, then you give the appropriate environment, and it goes by itself. Building, you have to build. When we do chinuch, when we do education of our children, there are certain things which are Zriyah. We plant an idea. I'll give you an example. All of you, Limud Torah is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you give that over to your children?
Education.
By Zriyah or by Binyan? Meaning, Binyan means every day you tell them, there's an air,
Not that one.
no. Or you plant the idea, the children see you getting up every morning at 5:30, and then they absorb it, right? There are certain areas of chinuch which are building. We have to build every day. Another raw bricks, we'll call it behavior, for example. You can't just plant an idea when a kid's 5, you have to bring them up, right? So there's riyad, there's planting, and there's binyan. The criteria in order for our children to absorb our values of zriyah, which is, we can say arbitrarily is 50% of our chinuch, is shalom bayis. If our homes are happy, and our marriages are fulfilling, and it's a happy place, the kids absorb the values. In other words, let's use the metaphor, the mashal. If I plant a seed, what do I need? I need the appropriate conditions that it should grow, but it grows by itself, agreed? I need sunlight, fertilizing, water, and air, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that's the case, so what is the fertilization, the sunlight, and the air that's appropriate for values? Shalom bayit. If you want your values to go over to your children have to feel that they want to be like you, and they have to grow up in a happy place. One of the main reasons why I'm saying this from speaking to thousands of bachurim, the main reason, not one of them, the main reason why children don't absorb values of the house is because the house is not a happy place, so why should they want to be associated with what the house represents? So people who don't have shalom bayit, who don't have good shalom bayit, they're losing arbitrarily 50% of chinuch. You're losing zriyah. You just lost it. Isn't that scary? It was worth you came just for that. Your whole ticket. Now, I want to give you a tool, if that's the case. So there's no more appropriate time to talk about it than Erev Pesach. Pesach is about the family, about the bayis. You could put the blood on the door frame and the mashkof to keep things out, but you have to have something inside also. It's not enough to say no. Blood, Monsieur, what do you have inside? Tell me, you always have to ask yourself, is your house a place where your kids want to be? Is your house a happy place? Is your house a pleasant place? So I want to give you one or two ideas, Moav Rabotai, of making your house, marriages, from good to great. We'll call it what Trump says, make marriages great again. Okay? I believe And it could be you're gonna argue, but you're wrong. Okay? How can I say you're wrong if I don't even know what you're gonna say? I know what you're gonna say and you're wrong. Okay? Nachon? The God's a maven, like they say in Brooklyn. Listen carefully. The main reason why in normal marriages, the marriages are mediocre and not what they could be, what they should be, is because of the following reason. And then I'm going to add on something very deep in the end. The pasuk says in Eicha, Migelat Eicha, we read it on Tisha B'Av. You guys also read it on Tisha B'Av, no? Not just Ashkenaz. Right? There was a korban for the Sfardim also, right? Okay. So, pasuk says, Tov lagever ki yisa ol b'norav. It's good that a person should carry a burden when he's young. Chazal say, ol is a lady. A lady doesn't mean a pain in the neck. It means an undertaking, right? What is this undertaking called, a lady? So I'll tell you what it is. Tell me, have you noticed, the ladies are not here by the way, so we can talk openly, right? Have you noticed, any of you, that your wives are emotionally dependent on you?
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that? What? What does that mean?
Yeah.
You know. I'm talking about you guys. Now, Akash Baruch Hu created that ladies are emotional independent. The Chazon Ish writes in a famous letter that the essence of a lady's existence is limtzo chen be'enei baila, to find favor in her husband's eyes. Okay? That's her whole existence. This phenomenon of finding favor in her husband's eyes is not an eitzah for shalom bayit. It's the dynamics of what the marriage is. You read what I just said? Those people look at their wives as needy. Agreed, the ladies are not here, so we can talk. People look at their wives as needy. That's the way they're supposed to be, by the way. Ladies are dependent on their husbands. Mm-hmm. And supplying that need is the marriage itself. When the lady's dependency is met, you can have an incredible Gan Eden paradise of a life. Today, in today's world, most people look at that dependency as mental illness. Why, by the way? Why? Makara. Why? Because in the Goyish world today, feminism and transgender, both of them, have created a blurring of the difference between men and women. So women are presented, first of all, the women are men. And second of all, the women are presented as these powerful, what do you call it, right? Ladies by nature are completely dependent on their husbands. Now today, because of the distortion in the correct hashkafa, people look at that dependency as neediness, as something wrong, and they don't want to supply it. And they don't supply it in the right way, and they don't understand the centrality. The difference between a good marriage and a bad marriage is a good marriage and a great marriage is the one who supplies the wife's fundamental dependency for warmth and love all the time, and that's the essence of the marriage. That's between a good marriage and a great marriage. All of you look at your wife's neediness as some sort of problem that you have to be civil, you have to live with, you have no choice. That's the way it's supposed to be. My wife is a shark, okay, in business. Rabbi Landesman knows her wife. A shark. My wife's an accountant, and she has a big firm in Yerushalayim with 3 branches. She supports the house. My wife is a basket case, completely dependent on me. You're surprised, right? The two things are not a stira, they're not a contradiction. See, it can't be, right? All of you think only your wife is the nebuch. You know what nebuch means by Ashkenazim? Right, you all think you were the one who ended up dafuk, this lady who always wants your attention and always wants your love and always, what do you call it, right? Nachon?
Shasha told us otherwise.
What do you say?
Shasha told us otherwise.
He showed you? You guys use the jewelry as a bribe to clean up for your messes afterwards.
Oh.
Not an etzem to supply the need. You understand the difference? No. You play on the guilt trip of mediocre husbands who don't provide what they need to do, so they have to cover over the pain of their wives with these absurd necklaces that you sell.
That's what I understand Jerusalem.
I might just cover your tickets in a few minutes. Listen carefully now. Therefore, since that's not just the essence of a lady, it's the essence of a marriage. So here's the nafkamina. Anger, negativity, criticism, frustration kill the ladies and kill the marriages. Kill. Ladies go crazy from it. Why? Because that's their whole life. Their whole life is that they're dependent on you. You're the oxygen tank. So there's two problems. One is most people today look at it as a b'diavad. They look at it as a problem. I have to live with it. It's not. That's the way it's supposed to be, and that's the etzem dynamics of what a marriage is. People who supply their wives with this emotional need of warmth, love, that she finds favor in your eyes, they live in paradise. Now, you're going to think I'm crazy. No anger, no frustration, no negativity, no criticism. What do you offer, your rocker?
What are you talking about?
What?
What are you talking
What are you
about?
talking about? Correct. What are you talking about? That's A. And B is, I'm going to go even further. I'm saying this is not only criticism and anger that you say. This is criticism and anger that you feel. The ladies, you ever notice that the ladies have the antennas like the CIA? They know what you're thinking. So you think, oh, my wife has Ruach HaKodesh, Zachiti. No, she doesn't have Ruach HaKodesh, by the way. Her antennas, her GPS is constantly searching to see if you love her. Now, the minute you have criticism or anger in your heart, she's dying. Now, you're all going to ask me and say, what are you, nuts? You brought this crazy rabbi from Mir Yeshiva to tell us that we're not allowed to get angry in our hearts? So first of all, if you would stop getting angry, your marriages would improve dramatically. I can promise you. I'm not a Mekubal, I don't have Ruach HaKodesh, and you can go to Mekubalim who charge more than me. I promise you, you guys are into these things, okay? I promise you that if you go home now and you'll stop being critical and stop being angry, your marriages will dramatically improve. I said 3 times dramatically. You could try it, I promise you. Now you're all going to ask me, how do we do this? A, we're critical people. B, we're angry. Third, we're frustrated. And fourth, we're chalavim, we criticize everything. Okay? What do we do? We're critical people.
The rabbi's different.
I'm not talking about the rabbi. I'm talking about the sheep, not the shepherd. Okay? By the way, I'm Hungarian. We're also critical, so I identify with your distress. What do we do? So I want to say 3 eitzot to fight criticism. I'll say 2 of them now, and the third one, you'll work on yourselves. Number 1. You know, they say that Rabbi Levine, you know, heard the story, he went to the doctor and he said, "Doctor, my wife's foot is hurting us." Did you ever hear that story? Mm-hmm. Right? Rabbi Levine was a big tzaddik in Yerushalayim. He used to go to the doctor and he said, "Doctor, my wife's foot is hurting us." Unbelievable. Dargav, ishtoki gufo, nachon? So when we were bachorim, when we were single, you hear such a story, you say, of course, you're going to love your wife. What's the question? Right? Remember that? Remember those days? Right? So today, when you go to the doctor and you tell them, my wife's foot is hurting us, you mean it's a pain in the neck, not that her foot's hurting you. Okay? Your neck's hurting you. How do you get to such a dargav, ishtoki gufo? Right? Chazal described a marriage could be like one. How do you get there? So I want to tell you a secret. And this is the first of the 2 secrets that could end all criticism, anger, and frustration. When I say the word all, I'm talking about massive amounts. You can have different marriages. First of all, I was once asked at a question and answer question in America. A guy sent an anonymous question which said, "My wife has bad midot. What should I do about it?" Okay? It's a good question. It was anonymous.
Takes one to know one.
So, it's true. It took one to know one. But I, because it was a setting of Talmidim of mine, men and women, I flipped the question and I said that a lady sent in that the husband, they have such a bad marriage that she figured out that I flipped his question. And he yelled at her, she yelled at him the whole night. They got divorced afterwards, okay? It's okay? 1 minute. We're running out of time. We'll laugh afterwards on the plane. Listen carefully. So, what's the answer to the question? My spouse has bad midos. Man, right? What do you do? So the answer is like this. Let's say, all of you, let's say a guy has a bad tennis elbow, right? Bad elbow. You amputate it? No. You accept it. This is the way I am. It means we don't look at ourselves. I want to tell you something very, very deep. We don't look at ourselves as a collection of dots, not connected. We look at the totality of ourselves. We accept, right? You don't say, oh, I have a tennis elbow, out with my elbow, right? We accept ourselves. What about our own bad midot, ourselves? The ladies aren't there, so we can talk about ourselves, right? We have bad midot. How do we look at it? We look at ourselves as bad and good and bad, or we accept the totality of ourselves? What does the Elam say?
Accept.
It is what
We
it is.
accept. It is what it is, and we accept it. We embrace it. We don't look at ourselves at a bunch of unconnected dots. This part's good, that part's terrible. V'ahavta l'recha kamecha says the Sfat Emet, an incredible thing. Normally, v'ahavta l'recha kamecha means it's a measurement of how much I shall love my fellow Jew. Kamecha, this much. He says a new pshat. Kamecha means the same tool that you use to love yourself, use it to love your fellow man. Kamecha means you know how to love yourself, right? How do you love yourself? You accept, right? Accept your other human being. All our wives and spouses have faults. So do we. How do we live with our own faults? We accept it, right? If you don't accept your wife's faults, you can never get to Ishto Kegufa. Because Kegufa means like yourselves. And I want to tell you something incredible. The Vilna Goin, the Gra, writes in Mishlei that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you ever thought about HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam and Chava together, and then he separated them, right? I'll tell you something life-changing. So why didn't he separate them to begin with? There was a mistake in the production. So anyway, it's going to end up as two, so start off as two. You ever thought about it? Says the Gra, says the Vilna Goin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that a person's wife should be part of him in order that he should be able to get to the level of kigufay, of love and cherishing, that's mamish like yourselves. Afterwards will separate you, but if a lady would never have been part of a human being, you would never be able to get to that darga of connection. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to get, means in this Gra, there's this tremendous kiddush. We normally think that you have a wife, so you need to love her. No. You have a wife in order to love her. What I just said? I repeat again. We think you have a wife, so love her. No. In order to love, you need a wife. And a person needs to love. A person needs to not be self-absorbed. A person needs to be ready to connect, to step out of himself. So the first thing that fights criticism, anger, frustration is acceptance. Accept your wife the way you accept yourselves. Is that doable? That would knock out 80% of the criticism and anger. You accept yourself, you're angry at yourself the whole day, no. So why angry at your wife? Accept her. It's kigufay. And the avodah of marriage is a very high spiritual avodah. It's not just to get along with her, not to throw dishes. You guys, the Syrians throw dishes? What do they throw?
I can.
What? Without the spiky heels, right? Also, that's not what Shalom Bayis is about. Shalom Bayis is about getting to the dargah of shlemut. That's what the Goyen says. Of course, listen to the depth. Of course, Baruch Hu created Adam and Chava as one person because the goal is to get to the oneness. Not that if you have a wife, love her. Fakir, you have a wife the other way around in order to get to that oneness. So the first tool against criticism, anger, and is acceptance. Tell me, am I creating too high of a bar or something that you guys can do?
Work on it.
What?
Work on it.
It's something that you switch like that. You don't need to work on it. I met a guy, he was married for 5 years. I would call this guy Mr. Complainer. From the day he got married, he walked out of the cheder yichud, which I'm not sure you guys have.
Yeah.
It's kacha. It's not mandatory though, right? Chetzi. From the second that the guy walked out of the cheder yichud, he's been complaining about his wife for 5 years nonstop. He bumped into me in the hallway over here in the building. He says to me a new complaint. She's not a good housekeeper. The house is a mess. So I said to him, listen, hey, Kvod Arav, you've been complaining nonstop 5 years. Do you have any chesronot? Are you lacking anything? So he said, yeah. I said, what? No, this guy has more than his wife. So I said, how do you live with it? You accept it. So accept your wife. He came back to me the next day and he said to me, no, the first day I was married. I was never married before. Because you're not one with somebody if you don't treat her like you treat yourself. That's tool number one. Tool number two, I'll say very quickly, is it's an emotional piece. A couple came to me, a guy was moving from place A to place B, he had to lease a car. He told his wife, I checked online, I leased ABC car at XYZ price. What did she say to him? Minhag benot Yisrael.
Oh,
You're gonna get it cheaper, right? Very good. Roshek Yivante.
Especially an accountant.
What?
Especially your wife being an
That
accountant.
wasn't my wife. It wasn't my wife.
has her own car.
She has her own car, and she leases mine also. I'm not involved in the Elam Hazeh in the house.
Did I mention I sell jewelry?
I told my wife she buy whatever she wants. She has a credit card. She has everything. It's not a problem. I'm not involved. But you can give me a business card afterwards. And a 20% discount for speaking to you. Yeah, I'm joking.
Kevin Hart and Chase, man.
You probably don't. It's not our taste anyway. Listen. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. She said, one second, she said you could have gotten it cheaper. Now, why did she say, one second, I was talking now, okay? Why did she say I could have gotten it cheaper? She doesn't know ABC, she doesn't know XYZ, she didn't even hear the name of the car.
Can't even do it.
One second, what? No, don't connect her, she doesn't know anything. Why did she say, by the way, I'm just curious.
Challenging.
You didn't include her.
So the answer is, because she's a lady. And ladies don't always think before they talk. Agreed? There's an expression in Hebrew, Azi Amra. So she said, next. On a scale of 0 to 10, of 1 to 10, how much pain should such a story cause him? What does the Elam say? You say 0.
2.
Oh, 2, good. What else?
Should or would?
What?
Should or would? Would probably.
Well, I don't know, whatever, should, will, tell whatever you want.
It's the Adam.
What do you say?
All depends on how you say.
Give me a number, no attitude.
10.
You said 10, fine. Okay, question 2. 1 second. I would prefer the Elam take off the taping now, okay? Please